Friends, join us. You can open your pamphlet. The words to our song of gathering is right there in the front of your pamphlet. We say, Hine ma tov u'ma na'im, shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is, how sweet it is when brothers and sisters can sit together. And we are so excited to have your voices join with ours, with our friends from Bright Star Church. Hine ma tov. Yananai, yananai, hine ma tov. Yananai, yananai, umanai. Yananai, yananai, umanai. Yananai, yananai, shevet achim. Yananai, yananai, shevet achim. Shevet achim gam yad. Yananai, yananai, hine ma tov. Yananai, yananai, umanai. Yananai, yananai, shevet achim. Shevet achim gam yad. Light up the world, oh brothers and sisters, together in peace and love. Bring light to the world, oh sisters and brothers, and sing Hine ma tov. Yananai, yananai, hine ma tov. Yananai, yananai, umanai. Yananai, yananai, shevet achim. Shevet achim gam yad. Yananai, yananai, hine ma tov. Yananai, yananai, umanai. Yananai, yananai, shevet achim. Shevet achim gam yad. Let's light up the world, oh brothers and sisters, together in peace and love. Bring light to the world, oh sisters and brothers, and sing Hine ma tov. Yananai, yananai, hine ma tov. Yananai, yananai, umanai. Yananai, yananai, shevet achim. Shevet achim gam yad. Yananai, yananai, hine ma tov. Yananai, yananai, umanai. Yananai, yananai, shevet achim. Shevet achim gam yad.
This is amazing.
Amen.
It's so wonderful to see Anshe Emet and Bright Star sitting together. So, Hine ma tov u'ma na'im, how good it is when brothers and sisters sit together in peace. And what a weekend for us to do that, as we commemorate the legacy of Dr. King. And tonight we're going to participate in a service. We're going to get to hear from Pastor Harris, who we all know, and we're going to hear from Jonathan Eig, who everybody should know. He's a remarkable author, and tonight, as the evening goes on, we're going to talk about his brand new book, King, A Life. It's an amazing book, and we're going to hear from him. We also get to celebrate the Sabbath day, and we get to celebrate our relationship with God. Sound good to you? Yes. Sounds good to me. So here's the book that we're going to be using. It should be in the seat rests, in the book rest near your seats. It says on the cover, Sidur Lev Shalem. A Sidur is a prayer book. And remember that since Hebrew reads in the opposite direction as English, this book opens in the opposite direction as well. So, and if you look with me on page 11, you'll see the beginning of our Friday night service. Now, if you see the red print on the we're on page 11. If you look, you'll see red print on the page at the bottom. You have Hebrew-English transliteration. So when you see the red print on the page, I want you to see that as an invitation to sing along, an invitation to join in. And if you don't know the Hebrew, if you're not comfortable with the Hebrew, then la 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 is understood by God as the fervent prayer of our soul. So let us go. Let us sing to the Lord. Let us trumpet our praise to our protector. L'chuna ranana. Sing a new song unto the Lord. Sing to Adonai, all the earth. This is the words of the psalmist, page 13. Let's sing together and let us create a new song in this world. Shir l'Adonai, shir chadash, shir l'Adonai, kol haaretz, shir l'Adonai, kol shemo, asru miyom leyom, yeshuato, sabru v'goyim, tevodo b'kol ha'amim, niflotav, ay, 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 Heaven shall be glad, the earth will rejoice, the sea and its fullness will roar. The meadows and all that grows in them exult. Even the trees of the forest shall sing praise as God comes to judge the earth, judging lands with righteousness and the peoples with divine truth. Darkness, light. Darkness, light. These are not just different moments in the day, they speak to our spiritual selves as well, don't they? Raise your hand if you've known moments of darkness. And raise your hands high if you've known moments of light. Now, darkness and light can come from nature, but one of the things that our Bible teaches us is that darkness and light can come from within us. We know that, don't we? Dr. King certainly knew that. So here in this psalm, look at it with me on page 16. What does the psalmist say? The very bottom, light is sown for the righteous and joy for the upright. When we show our light, God responds and sows light for us. And all you can do in the midst of that light is to thank God, to rejoice in God. And thank God as we pronounce and call out God's holy name. Or Zaru ala Tzaddik, page 16. Tomorrow morning when we read from the 5 books of Moses, we're going to tell the story of Moses living in Midian. And there he is with his sheep, and he sees a bush. And the bush is on fire, but it's not burning. And he goes and looks at the bush, and it's God calling out to him. Now I ask you, was Moses the only person that God ever spoke to? Yes or no? No. Does God speak to us? The key to hearing the voice of God is to listen, is to be looking, is to have our eyes open like Moses did on that day. This psalm that we're going to chant now, Psalm 29, talks about the voice of God. The word kol means voice. And it talks about how the voice of God appears and was ultimately heard on Mount Sinai, where the entire people of Israel heard the voice of God. So we rise for this psalm so that we can attune our ears to the voice of God here and now in our time. So we're on page 21. The transliteration is in the red print.
Avul Adonai b'nei Elim, Avul Adonai kavod va'oz, Avul Adonai kevod shemo, Ishtachavu l'Adonai b'hadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim, el hakavod hirim, Adonai al mayim rabim, al mayim rabim, Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et arzei halvanon, Vayarkidem kemo egel, Levanon v'Sirion kemo ben re'emim, Kol Adonai chotzev lahabodesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yecholel hayalot, vayechesov yeharot, uvehechalo kulo, kulo omer kavod, Adonai lamahul yashab, vayeshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai oz liyamo yitei, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom.
Friends, you may be seated. During the course of the service, we're going to talk about Dr. King's legacy. And we're going to use different ideas about Dr. King to lead into prayers. So I'm going to start, and then we're going to hear from Pastor Harris, and then we're going to hear from Jonathan Eig as well. And I'm going to talk about Dr. King as a modern-day prophet. You know that Dr. King's words were tinged with the anger of God for the injustices in the world. We know that Dr. King also expressed his concern for the poor, for the marginalized, maybe because of the color of their skin, maybe because of their religious beliefs. But in his words were a deep caring. In his words were the pathos of God. Dr. King saw every human being as created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God. And he demanded that society reflect that value. Martin Luther King Jr. was a modern prophet. In April of 1963, Dr. King went to Birmingham to lead a nonviolent march, to sit at lunch counters that were reserved for white folks, to look Jim Crow in the eye and say, enough, no more. He soon found himself in jail. And those in the clergy, ministers, priests, rabbis, advised Dr. King to slow down, to stop pressing so hard for change, to fight another day down the road. Martin, let's just get along, they were saying to him. But King would have none of it. From that jail cell, he wrote a letter called A Letter from the Birmingham Jail. Listen to his words. I am in Birmingham because of injustice here. Just as the prophets of the 8th century BC left their villages and carried their "Thus saith the Lord" far beyond the boundaries of their hometown, and just as the Apostle Paul left his village of Tarsus and carried the gospel to the far corners of the Greco-Roman Empire, so am I compelled to carry the gospel of freedom beyond my own hometown. He spoke to those religious leaders in words that would have made Amos, Elijah, and Isaiah proud. He went on to say, we know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. For years now, I have heard the word wait. It rings in the ear of every Negro with piercing familiarity. This wait was almost always meant as never. We must come to see that justice too long delayed is justice denied. And like a prophet of old, Dr. King's caring, his passion for justice went beyond people of color and extended to people everywhere. Injustice anywhere, he wrote, is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied to a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I submit to you that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a modern-day prophet. And we have come to a prayer that really inaugurates the Sabbath day. It's called Lecha Dodi. Come, my friend, let us greet the bride Shabbat. Let us welcome God into the midst of this sanctuary. And in this prayer, we ask God to be in this space with us. And at the end of this prayer, you're going to be invited to rise, to face the rear of the room, to literally welcome God's presence into this space. On this Shabbat, when we come together to remember Dr. King, I believe that if he was standing at this pulpit at this moment in time, he would ask us, are we worthy of God's presence? Are we building a society worthy of God's presence? Are we, each of us, doing enough to fight injustice? And And I think he would end by saying, let us wait no longer. God is waiting to be in our presence. Lecha Dodi, page 23.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Shabbat nekabela. Amor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmiyanu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shemo tiferet v'litila. Lecha Dodi, lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor habracha, merosh mikedem nisucha, sof maseh b'machshava tchila.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה, ומצאי מתוך ההפכה, רב לך שבט בעמק הבכה, והוא יחמול עלייך נגלה. lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. תתנערי מעפר קומי, לבשי בגדי תפארתך עמי, על יד בן ישי בית הלכי, קרבה אל נפשי גאלה. Lecha Dodi, lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Hitoreri, ki va'orek umiori, uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai alayich nimla.
Lecha Dodi, lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. לא תבושי ולא תקלני, מה תשתוכחי ומה תהמי, בך יחסו עניי עמי, ונפנתה ירדתי לה. lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. והיילים שיסה שוסייך, ורחקו כל מבלייך, יסיס עלייך אלוהייך, ימסוס חתן נחלה. lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Yaminu smo tifrotzi, v'et Adonai ta'aritzi, al yadish ben partzi, v'nismecha v'nagila.
Lecha גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך עדי, לך עדי ככלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך עדי ככלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך עדי, לך עדי, לך עדי ככלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך עדי ככלה, פני שבת
I invite you to remain standing for just a moment. At this point in our service, we welcome mourners to come into the synagogue, people who have had losses in the past week. But tonight, I want to think about those who are mourning gun violence in the city of Chicago. Those who are mourning a son or a daughter, or a father, a mother, a grandmother, a grandfather, a grandson, a granddaughter on this Friday night. Someone who was alive and well a week ago is gone. So I'm going to read the words in Hebrew on page 26, but I want to think about all of those families who are suffering loss today. And I want to pray for their comfort with you. Hamakom yenachem etchem betoch sha'ar avelei Tzion Yerushalayim. Together, may the divine comfort you along with the other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. May you find comfort from heaven. And to that we can all say, Amen. Friends, you may be seated. I'm going to invite you to read the Psalm for the Sabbath day together with me on page 27 in English. It is good to thank you, Adonai, and sing your name most high, to proclaim your love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night.
Finger the lute, pluck the harp, let the sound of the lyre rise up.
Oh, you can do so much better than this. You gladden me with your deeds, Adonai, and I sing of your handiwork.
How wonderful are your works, Adonai, how subtle your designs.
If we were at Bright Star, I have a feeling we would be hearing this a lot more, so pretend you are there. Because the arrogant do not understand, the fool does not comprehend this. The wicked flourish like grass, and every evildoer blossoms only to be destroyed forever.
But you, Adonai, are exalted all time.
Surely your enemies, Adonai, surely your enemies will perish. All who commit evil will be scattered.
As a wild bull raises up its horn, you raised my head high, anointed it with fresh oil.
As my enemies gathered against me, my gaze remains steady, for my ears listen and hear.
The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai. They flourish in our God's courtyard.
In old age, they remain fruitful, still fresh and bountiful, proclaiming Adonai is upright, my rock in whom there is no flaw. Don't change the page, because at the bottom in the red print, you'll see the words, Tzadik Katamar Yifrach.
צדיק התמר יפרח, כארז בלבנון יזכה. צדיק התמר יפרח, כארז בלבנון יזכה. שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו. עוד ינבון בסביבה, דשנים ורעננים יהיו, הגיתי ישר אדוני, צורי ולאו לטבו. ננאי 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 oh ננאי 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 sing with me ננאי 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 you got it on your own oh nine nine nine
We come to the mourner's prayer. So I'm going to invite anyone who's in mourning to rise and recite the words of Kaddish on page 30. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael v'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam u'me'almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudashah barichu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiram b'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Friends, you may be seated. As we continue to reflect on the legacy of Dr. King, it's my pleasure to call upon my brother from another mother. And Chris's mother is here tonight, so I say that with some surety. And Chris is going to share with us some thoughts as we are about to be called to worship.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm glad to be back home again tonight with my brother from another mother. And I think you guys are used to me now after 10 years. You know I'm going to do something just a little bit different. This is the first time that I've had this many people from Bright Star and St. James with us tonight. They're breaking records. And we are glad to be here with you tonight. Now, I don't know if you can tell the difference in who's from here and from Southside. But in case you're not sure, Bright Star, St. James, make some noise. Let them know we're glad to be with our family tonight. And as always, we believe that you have the absolute best rabbi on the planet. My brother. Come on, make some noise for Rabbi Siegel. We love you, and to Janet and to the family here tonight. Everybody just shout out as you normally would when I'm here. Shout, we're better together. We're better together. I am thoroughly convinced that we have the responsibility to make sure that King's dream does not become a nightmare. We have a responsibility to continue to cause the legacy to live. The only thing that disturbs me when we come together is the lack of youth that are with us. It's nice for us to get it. but it doesn't live and it doesn't last if the youth don't get it. So tonight I pray that we will make a commitment tonight that the next time we come together, and there will be many next times that we come together, we will make sure we bring as many youth as we possibly can to teach the next generation that we are all better together. If you agree, clap your hands and make some noise. Now, you know you at Bright Star, you're at St. James in Bronzeville, and you got to talk back to the black preacher. And if you don't talk back to me, I'll be up here longer than I'm supposed to be. Everybody say, the beloved community. The beloved community. That's what Dr. King talked about all the time, the beloved community. And Dr. King defined a beloved community as a group of people that could come together to solve any social issue, any division, or any struggle. Any group of people. If we come together tonight and we do a lot of talking, but we do no working, we might be a community that loves, but we are absolutely not what Dr. King called the beloved community. Here is the question. What will we do after all we have said? And I oftentimes say this to people, and do me a favor, look at somebody right now and talk back to them like you're at Bright Star. And I want you to look at somebody, find somebody better looking than you are. Oh, I see 3 of y'all won't look at nobody. Must be the best looking person on the road. But look that neighbor in the eye and say these words. Say, neighbor, say nothing, until you do something. Clap your hands if you agree with that. Say nothing. What problems are we solving? What solutions are we providing? It is a group of people who come together to solve not a, but any social issue, any division, any struggle. Until we're coming together and we're working to solve racism, to solve anti-Semitism, to solve terrorism, to solve lack in any area, are we truly a beloved community? Now wait, on Friday night, while we're here enjoying one another, the reality is, in the time that we're together, by way of statistics, at least 3 people will be dead before we get to the south side. Wow. And here's the challenge. Our community know those people. These are our cousins. These are our brothers. These are our sisters. And whether you're here on the scene listening to me or you're watching on the screen, the question is, what will we do as a beloved community? Let's be honest. African American and Jewish people have been connecting for a long time, beyond civil rights. I mean, if you just want me to, I can pull out a few cases in the Bible. There are a few cases in Scripture where the Jewish and black community were connected. And then in the civil rights movement, and now we're doing it now. But what problems are we solving? I'm glad that we are together because of the trip to Israel and because of our joint work together. We're working as a beloved community to solve the problem of trauma, PTSD, by bringing Natal all the way from Israel to Bronzeville. We're solving the problem of hunger. Whenever we had a bunch of folks who were during COVID could not eat, our communities came together to bring tens of thousands of boxes of food to solve the problem of hunger. We decided that's not enough. How do we solve the problem of a lack of education? Because everybody talks about the fact that many schools on the South Side are underperforming, under-enrolled, but who's going to talk about the fact that those same schools are under-resourced? Until children on the South Side and West Side have access to the same tools and resources that schools on the North Side have. Until they have technology, we decided it's not enough to just give them a computer. What about tutorial programming? The reason you ought to love Rabbi Siegel the way we love him is because he reached out to a law firm and said, hey, we need you to donate at least 70 plus computers. And that's not enough to give them access to technology, but young people from Anshe Emet and from the North Shore would be tutoring kids from the South Side in Bronzeville. You ought to clap that you got somebody who is doing something to solve the problem. Everybody say these words. Now it's my turn. Solving any social issue, any division, or any struggle. Creating the beloved community is about bridging the gaps between the haves and the have-nots with real opportunities. You know why I'm here tonight? You know why all of these folks are coming with me? It's because we're talking about real issues. We're not sensitive. We can't have our feelings on our shoulder. Yeah. Let's be honest and talk about there are haves and have-nots. And we have to provide real opportunities. Oh, thank you, Anshe Emet, for not being one of the synagogues that like to do episodic things. You know, when we come together during Dr. King's birthday and we lock arms tonight and sing, "We Shall Overcome." But the truth is, neither one of our communities will overcome until we come over into each other's community and see about one another. Real people addressing real problems, providing real solutions. Somebody shout, "It's my turn." It's my turn. What is it? What is the beloved community? Number one, embrace your global family. Because that which affects us globally should affect us locally. We have people at Bright Star and St. James now, when they see on the news that there are issues happening in Israel, texting a brother from the hood, asking me, "Did you see what happened in Israel?" Now, you know that ain't normal. But I say to all my friends who always remind us, when Rabbi Siegel and I are traveling, I say to them all the time, listen, don't talk to us no more about Dr. King and Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. You want to impress me? Don't show me another picture of them. Let's keep the old frames and put some new pictures of us marching together now, bringing real solutions and real opportunities. Yeah, here's the key. Please, all of you folks that are a little dark-skinned, that want to go to Israel, raise your hand. Look at all these people. All of these folks are saying, I want to go to Israel. I want to go to the Holy Land. And people in the Jewish community get excited about that. But here's what I tell my friends. Don't ask us to go all the way to Israel, and you can't take a short trip to Bronzeville. That's beloved community. When we say to ourselves, what matters to you now matters to me. Oh, don't nobody want all these black people to show up. If we find out that somebody's messing with the synagogue, I need you to know, Anshe Emet, y'all got some friends that don't play about y'all. That's beloved community. Yeah, when you talk about embrace your global family, yes, we're concerned about that which is global. What are we doing local? Number two, realize that everyone can make a difference. Doesn't matter how young, old you are. The reality is everybody can make a difference. Number three, understand the value of nonviolence. That is the thing that Dr. King was talking about when he said the beloved community. Understanding the value of nonviolence. You don't always have to ball up your fists, but neither should you keep your eyes closed. Bow down your head. There is a time when your friends are struggling, 3 things you should do. Show up, stand up, and speak up. Because it was Dr. King who said it best. It is not the noise, and let me paraphrase, not the noise and the chaos of our enemies that we will remember, but what we'll remember is the silence of our friends. Silence is complicit. And even if you didn't do it, if you said nothing about it, what's the difference? Somebody shout, I have to do something. Somebody shout, I have to say something. Yes, we appreciate nonviolence, said King, is a powerful tool for creating beloved communities as well as molding leaders. And when young people are rioting, and it is wrong, when young people are tearing things up, and it is wrong, young or old, yeah, it should not happen. But it was Dr. King who said it best. Riots are the language of the unheard. Sometimes when people get violent, it's because they feel they were ignored when they were not. So we got to come up with opportunities to make sure that we are proactive in solving problems and not reactive. We don't need another George Floyd to wake white people up. And the reality is, since George Floyd, there have been many more. Just this week in the news, black man has an accident. He waves down the police, and the police get out of the car. And not only do they tackle him and tase him, but they killed him. And he used his hand to ask for help. And let me tell you, there's a thing called compassion fatigue. But folks who say, you know what? We put the guys in jail. May George Floyd's memory be a blessing. But I need you to understand, right now there's another situation happening before we get to our homes. That's why Dr. King said the beloved community is not only about embracing your global family, realizing that everyone can make a difference, understanding the value of nonviolence, but he also said, serve humanity or serve humankind. I'll never forget that Dr. King told a story. And he said there was an uninformed, some of us would call ignorant white man who was on the plane with him, sitting next to him. And he was judging the plight of black people. And he said to Dr. King on the plane, he said, Dr. King, why don't you tell your people to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps? Dr. King just didn't even entertain such an ignorant, insensitive man with looking in his eyes. He just looked down and he said to the man, it is a cruel jest to ask bootless people to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. We all know what King did. Here's the question. What will you do?
Come on here. Page 39A.
Please rise.
The beloved community is being called to worship. Page 39A.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Yana-nai-nai-nai, 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 yana-nai-nai-nai. Barechu et Adonai ha-mevorach. Baruch Adonai ha-mevorach le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed. Yana-nai-nai-nai, 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 yana-nai-nai-nai. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה ומבדיר בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב הרבים.
Friends, you may be seated. To never withdraw your love from us, God. We praise you, who loves your people Israel and all humankind.
ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל.
Page 41, the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God. Adonai is one. Please join me on page 41. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all that is yours. These words that I command you this day shall be taken to heart. Teach them again and again to your children. Speak of them when you sit in your home, when you walk on your way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand and as a symbol above your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your home and on your gates.
Adonai Elohechem Emet.
Our service continues on page 44.
When Moses and Miriam stood with our people, leaving Egypt, walking from a place of slavery and marching into a plain of freedom, they came to the sea. The sea was closed. The water wouldn't move. And they stood in front of that water with faith that God believes in our freedom and God will open the water. They sang words that we find in the book of Exodus, praising the one and only God, that there is none like God. They said, Mi chamocha, who is like you, God? There is none like you. None can compare to you, the one who would fight for our freedom, who would give us courage, who would help us cross seas that are impossibly closed. This song that we sing today blends the words of Mi Chamocha with the tune that we find in the Bible, along with the words of Dr. King and the song We Shall Overcome, remembering that when we stand in front of waters that feel like they cannot open, God will open those waters if we walk with faith. When your children witnessed your power, they extolled you and gave you thanks. And yet we, your children, still need to experience your redemptive power in the world. We need hope and we need faith. In the words of Dr. King, with this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that all will be free one day.
מי כמוך האלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדע בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף אליו, מלכותך
And when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the Negro spiritual, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
ברוך אתה אדוני, גואל ישראל.
I am blessed because I have another brother from another mother. His name is Jonathan Eig. And we're going to be talking about his very important book in a little while. But he's going to help us appreciate a prayer that is coming up, Hashkivenu, a prayer where we ask God to lie down in peace.
Rabbi. Thank you, Pastor Harris. Thank you all for joining. Thanks, everybody, for being with us. It's a real blessing to be with all of you tonight. And it's a rough act to have to follow these two clergy. I'm a mere writer. Bear with me. I'd like to begin by asking everybody tonight to think for a moment about where you learned the concept of equity, which will be the subject of our prayer in a moment. Where did you learn about the subject of equity? Of justice? Was it from your parents? Was it from your school? Was it from your religion? And then think for a moment about where Martin Luther King Jr. learned about the concept of equity. Did he learn it from his parents? Absolutely. But his father was a sharecropper. His grandparents were born into chattel slavery. They learned about the concept of equity from having been denied it. They learned about the concept of justice from having been denied it. Did King learn about equity from school? Absolutely, but he attended schools, the only schools that were available to him that were entirely segregated. And the state colleges and universities of Georgia, where he grew up, were entirely off limits. So he too learned about equity and justice from having been denied it. Did he learn about equity and justice from his religion? Absolutely. Because his father and his grandfather were preachers. And his grandfather was preaching while he was still enslaved. Think about that. Think about the words that they were praying, the songs that they were learning. Martin Luther King Jr. was learning those Bible verses, was learning to quote the Bible before he could read. And those words that they were praying were in direct contradiction to the lives that they were living. Those words said that all men were created equal. Those words said that we were all of us made in the image of God. And as the Talmud says, the human, the person, the people, the soul of men and women is the lantern of God. So what do you do when you're learning about equity and the lessons that you're getting from the Bible are in contradiction to the lessons that you're getting from the United States government, from the state of Georgia? How do you absorb those lessons? Do you reject one of the two sources? Do you reject your religion because it's clearly not what you're living? Or do you accept that as a challenge? And I say to you tonight that Martin Luther King Jr. clearly accepted that as a challenge, as a call to action, as a commandment from God, that it is our duty, and that it was his duty, to make the world come into alignment with the words in the Bible. If they're not true now, they must be, and we must make it so. And that's what he dedicated his entire life to. He left that school, that segregated public school, went to Morehouse, went to seminary, where he would practice. I talked to one of his classmates. I interviewed about 200 people who knew Dr. King. And what a blessing it is to be alive at a time when people who knew this man who we think of as a saint, as a prophet, but his older sister is still with us. God bless her. And I talked to these people, and one of them, somebody who went to college, remembered King in his dorm room at the age of 19, practicing this quote that we all know from the prophet Amos: "Let justice roll down like water, and righteousness from a mighty stream." King goes on to his first job as a preacher in Montgomery, and he's not planning to become the national leader of a civil rights movement. He wants to preach a little while and maybe get a job teaching, but he's committed in whatever job he takes to fighting for justice. That's a given. But what happens in Montgomery is that he's thrust into this position of leadership unexpectedly, and he accepts that mantle of leadership and devotes the rest of his life to that job on the front lines in this battle. And at great peril, obviously. His home is bombed, he's stabbed, he's shot at, but he goes on, he moves forward. And he does this all, I believe, because of those simple words that he got from the Bible, that there's a clear contradiction between the way we are behaving as Americans and what the Bible expects of us. And he feels there's responsibility to carry that forward. So as he moves on, as he goes from Montgomery to Birmingham, to Selma, to Chicago, let's not forget about Chicago, where he came to point out that we may disguise our racism and our segregation a little bit better than they do in Selma and Montgomery, but we are not behaving any better. And he puts it on the line. He begins to expand beyond the South, beyond voting rights. He could have stopped after the March on Washington. He could have stopped after the Voting Rights Act was passed. But he says, no. The Bible tells us that we don't stop until everyone is free. The Bible tells us that the people in Vietnam are the same as us, that we are all God's children. So he begins to speak out against the war. And he comes under terrible pressure for this. His own people, his own friends, his own allies, his best supporters within the movement are telling him, stop, stay in your lane. You're going to lose everything. And there's one phone call that he makes with one of his closest advisors. It's recorded by the FBI, because the FBI also does not understand where King is coming from. And it almost made me cry. We have these words recorded because the FBI is surveilling him. And you hear King saying to one of his best friends, haven't you been listening? Don't you understand who I am? Don't you know why I've been doing this all these years? It's because God commands us to do this. I have to do this. This is who I am. This is what God expects of us. And he risks everything for what he believes. And I want to come back in closing to those words that King practiced from his dorm room as a teenager. Let justice roll down like water, and righteousness like a mighty stream. Can we say it together? Let justice roll down like water, and righteousness like a mighty stream. Let's say it like Dr. King might have said it. Let justice roll down like water, and righteousness like a mighty stream. What does that mean? I didn't get it for a while. But I think it means that this is nature. This is what God has given us. God has given us justice that rolls down like water, like a mighty stream. But what's the first word? Let. Let. We must work to let justice roll down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. It doesn't happen on its own. And it certainly doesn't happen if we're obstructing that flow, if we're building dams. So I want to leave you, and maybe you'll repeat it with me one more time. Dr. King added a little bit to the prophet Amos. The prophets are allowed to embellish. They're allowed to add on to one another's work. At the March on Washington, 1963, April 28th, he said, "We are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream." And that's why we're here tonight, and that's why we continue the work, and that's why the words of my friends are so inspiring, because we must continue that work so that justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Shabbat Shalom.
Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, ve'amidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha, shlomecha. Baruch Adonai haborei sukkot shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
We rise as we celebrate the covenant of the Sabbath. We're on page 46.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. דברי קירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ימרו אמן יהי שמרה במבורך לעולם ולעד ועלמיה
יתברך
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה שמי קדושה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה בנחמתה תמירן בעלמה וימרו.
We stand in silent prayer as we stand before the throne of God. We're on page 47, or offer the prayers of your own hearts. God, you make peace in the high places. We pray that you will make peace for us, the entire household of the people of Israel, and all humankind. If you look in the inner page of your booklets, you'll find the words for Oseh Shalom.
עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Le'Yaakov Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Le'Yaakov Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Le'Yaakov Yisrael.
May be seated. Next Saturday, we have a very special event happening at the Anshe Emet Synagogue. Sadie Ankin, who is joining me right now in Cantor Brook, is going to become a bat mitzvah. It's a very special event in the life of a young adult. And I want you to know that Sadie is a very special young woman. And she is going to give a sermon, we'll use that word. She's going to give a talk that would rival Pastor Brooke. Money back guarantee on that. No pressure. So tonight, as we look forward to next Saturday, Sadie's going to lead us in the Kiddush. The Kiddush is the holiness prayer. It is a way for us to acknowledge that it is the Sabbath day. It's a way for us to acknowledge that we have the power to create holy time. And I have to tell you that this service is a holy event. I am so grateful to look around a room on a night like tonight and see friends from Bright Star, see friends from Anshe Emet singing together and smiling together and praying together. And I am so proud to call Pastor Chris Harris a friend. I'm so proud to call Jonathan Eig a friend. And they are my teachers because I have learned so very much from them as they have taught us tonight. And to our clergy, thank you so very much for lifting our spirits. Cantor Brook, to Cantor Berkey, to Rabbi Chicken Gould, we thank each of one of you for your participation. And with no further ado, we have a gift for Sadie. It is a special cup, what we would call a Kiddush cup. And it's being presented to you on behalf of our sisterhood. And it has your initials, and it also has the initials of the synagogue, so you never forget us. So we're going to put some grape juice in the cup, and we're going to ask Sadie to lead us in Kiddush. And we hope that when you use this cup in the future, Sadie, that'll remind you of a very special day when you led this congregation in prayer.
Baruch atah
You rise.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshani b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho v'ahav v'ratzon hinhilanu, v'zikaron l'maaseh b'reishit. Ki hu yom tehila lemikraye kodesh, zeher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Ki banu v'acharta, v'yotanu kidashta, mikol amim. Shabbat kodshecha, ve'ava uvratzon, hinhilanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mikadesh ha-Shabbat.
Amen. Take a sip. How about a round of applause for Saving Income? Right? Nice job. Well done. Mazel tov. And since we're all standing, we're going to continue in our service with Aleinu. We're on page 56.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נותן שמיים ויוצרת ושמיים. ככתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
This is the part in our service where we say a prayer for mourning. And when you live in the city of Chicago, we mourn a lot. And I want to acknowledge that Governor Pritzker did something amazing this week. And I think we should acknowledge that too, because let's hope and pray that this will save lives, that a gun control measure is a step forward. So let's celebrate his leadership, because this was no small matter. For Jews, a prayer is a call to action. And so as we stand with our mourners and as we stand with people who are remembering the anniversary of the death of a loved one, we are thinking of those who have left us too young, inappropriately at the wrong time, because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And as we say these words, these ancient words, let us see them as a call to action. We're on page 58. V'yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah v'yalma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael v'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam u'me'olmaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudesha barichu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiram v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav Hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Friends, you may be seated. At the end of our service, which will be in just a moment or two, those who are joining us for dinner will go into the community hall. Teams that are going to be part of a special dinner led by Rabbi George Shakin Gould and others from Bright Star. That's going to be taking place across the hall in the Rose Crown Room. So those are the two places. Tomorrow morning, we're going to gather for services at 9:30, and the remembrance and celebration of the legacy of Dr. King is going to continue as David Wilkenfeld, a member of our community, a Jew of color, will be speaking and offering a sermon in the morning. I want to take a moment to thank our remarkable musicians, Chris Mahu, Ed Gerber, Matt Ullery, Kalyan Patak. Thank you all so very much. And Dudley Owens from Bright Star. How about a round of applause for Dudley Owens? Thank you so much. How about a round of applause for the Bright Star choir members that joined us? So what are you guys doing next Friday night?
But seriously.
If you can't dream on Dr. King weekend, when can you dream? Let's close with a moment of total praise as we join with our two cantors and our Bright Star singers. And I want to offer a special thank you to our senior cantor, Rachel Brooke, for putting this service together so beautifully. One last thing before we leave this room. I want you to look around and I want you to find somebody near you and I want you to look at them and I want you to say two words. It's a prayer, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. You heard me.
All right, man.